possible when first responders use their abilities beyond the quote standard range of perceptions.
And the soul looks like the person, but I can see through them.
Welcome to the Frequency Files. Thanks for joining us as we explore the vibrations, forms, and creations and mechanisms behind them that inform the nature of existence. Hey, I'm Sarah, and today I will be speaking with another SarahKGrace. She was a paramedic in California's busiest 911 system for 15 years and has been able to see, hear, feel, and sense energy outside of the normal senses since the age of 7. This stimulus was initially challenging and a torment for her until she used her abilities for good during people's worst moments. And now Sarah works as a full-time medical intuitive, psychic surgeon, and is a best-selling author. Sarah educates, empowers, and inspires countless people into using their own gifts and greatness. She's into being real and tangibly helping people, and will go all the way to help you remember your own divine nature and power. And on today's podcast, we're really going to unpack Sarah's lifelong journey of spiritual expansion, some of her key learnings, and how she goes about cultivating deeper connection to herself, to life, to all that is, and more about those experiences working at the nexus of first responder medicine and as a psychic. Sarah, love that you have made the time to be with us today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody watching and listening.
To start off, can you please share a little bit about your very deep background and what has led you to where you are today?
Girl, it has been a ride, as it's been for a lot of people lately, right? So I grew up in a tiny town in South Dakota in the Midwest before internet. And that's important because I couldn't just Google what was happening to me. At the age of 7, with no fanfare, I just woke up and could see auras. I could see colors around people. I could see energy between plants and trees off of animals. I could feel people's feelings. I knew what they were thinking. I knew if they were lying. And then I could see disease in their bodies and eventually dead people and spirits. So as a kid in the middle of nowhere with no resource, just cruising around trying to figure out like, what is this? I finally asked a family member, like, hey, and unfortunately I was shamed and condemned, and I got the whole, like, you're going to burn in hell. Don't ever talk about this. So I internalized something very deeply wrong with me, which so many of us can relate to, right? That what's wrong? Why can't I be normal?
Yeah.
And that really began kind of a long odyssey where I was heavily closeted for my abilities for 25 years. And I
Wow.
went through a lot of hard knocks, a lot of, coping mechanisms because I was trying to figure out how to be with all of it. I actually had an overdose and I had a near-death experience, and all of these things eventually got me to the place of accepting that my intuition was like, every time an ambulance would go by, it'd be like, that, go do that. But I was scared because I didn't, being a paramedic that's a lot of responsibility. And here I was, still unsure as to why I'm perceiving energy and stimulus the way that I am, wanting to be normal, which I never was, and I never really fit in anywhere, which created all kinds of turmoil for me, which again, so many people can relate to. But I didn't have anything left to lose at the time. I was young and I was like, all right, screw it, I'm going to go. And I went through the schooling and started working in South Central Los Angeles, a very busy 911 system. And over the next 15 years, what ended up happening was the energies would come through me on calls. And so I would be able to see the energy of the people leaving their bodies as they were dying. I would know what was going to happen on scene 2 or 3 beats before it did. I always had tells for death. So I was a really good paramedic. I became kind of a midwife as people were dying and able to calm the entire scene utilizing energetics. And so it started with a long time ago, not understanding being shamed and condemned, went into heavily closeted, trying everything to be quote normal, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Right? And then I'm finally working in this respected field, and I didn't want to be the weird girl who sees dead people. You know what I'm saying? I'm around all the firefighters and SWAT guys. I want to like fit in. But it just happened. It was effortless and it became like a symphony. So over time I began questioning what I had been told. Because how could this be bad if I'm helping people in their worst moments, right? Over and over and over. And that began my own personal healing odyssey, where I finally said, all right, you know what? Screw it. This is how I am. It is what it is. What is it? Why am I like this? And what can I do with it? And so I went into my own healing, shadow and trauma integration, and then studied all the modalities of holistic healing, energy healing, and all the things. And then eventually developed my practice that I have now.
Wow. Huge. How did your, and you hinted at it a little bit on the phone, how did your psychic insights really complement your medical training? And how did you navigate that in the day-to-day on the field with your colleagues? What did that look like?
It was such an advantage. The Western structure is such, it's a, we understand the medical industrial complex as it is, right? And
Yeah.
it is what it is. And like in the emergency situation, you still need us as medics if it's a true emergency. So we still have protocols to follow that I would follow verbatim, obviously, per practice. But energetically, I always had kind of a tell, my tell for death is tasting metal, still to this day. So I would hear the tones come over the radio. We get assigned to the call, and I knew it was going to be death. And so like I would be able to prepare myself, or we would go on scene of like a really volatile experience. Say there's a drive-by shooting, or there's a gang fight, or there's a domestic violence, and we got people everywhere screaming, whatever. This energy would just come over the top of me. And again, nothing I'm trying to do, but it would literally, you could audibly hear it sometime. It would go boom. And people would stop and like look around for a second, be like, wait, what? And then I could get in and start doing what I needed to do as a medic, right? And I'll never forget, we had one call that happened on, and it was so audible that the two cops that were on scene, this gentleman had coughed and the side of his neck blew out. He had a ruptured aneurysm, and he dropped into he died and hit the ground right in front of his family. So it was very intense, but this energy calmed the entire scene. So we were able to work. But the cops were like, they looked at each other like, did you hear that? What was that? And then they looked at me, and I'm just like, I got to run a CPR, guys, So I didn't know what it was still at that time. I was still closeted the first 10 years of my experience, but they could feel it. And everybody loved working with me because I was the person who got all the gnarly calls. And as medics, that's what, that's why we're medics, right? We run towards what everybody else is running away from. So we like that intensity. And so they could feel it. And over time, as I first accepted, and I had so much stigma and judgment and fear and shame to get over, like it was a thing, I'm this like top step, senior level, super good medic, felt super like, and then my intuition's like, yeah, now you got to go over here and do energy healing. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? It's like the opposite side, right? But to me, I like to make it grounded, practical, relatable, understandable. We can take I had a lot of judgment around some of the woo stuff out there, because to me, I'm like, yeah, but what are you saying? Like, what are we actually doing here? Right? Like, how is this going to help us function as humans? And so through the course of my studies, I've really just taken little bits from a lot of different places. And then I really just like to make it just that, like relatable, right? So as I became more comfortable and was like, okay, I'm going to be how I am with this. And I'm willing to be out and open with my abilities, but I'm going to be grounded with it. And I'm going to make it make sense. And so then I started talking more openly to my colleagues, and girl, there was so many of them that had had experiences and they were never going to say anything. And then I said it and they're like, oh, take me aside. They're like, me too, you know?
Wow.
Yeah, it's so funny.
And I think that's something that probably happens so often in the first responder space, medical space. I was speaking to a friend of mine who's a midwife and done death doulaing as well. And she said, you just go into a coffee, like a tea space in a hospital, and everyone's got a story. And I find that so interesting. Like, how do you think the healthcare system can better integrate holistic perspectives, awarenesses, and what will it take?
Fortunately, humanity is kind of forcing the issue because people are sick and tired of being told the same old crap. Take more pills and just do talk therapy. And people don't want to hear that. They want something that actually works. It doesn't just, cover up the symptoms. So fortunately, we're seeing a lot more providers such as myself, nurses, physicians that are doing integrative blends.
Mm,
So during the EMS, the emergent setting, but there's bridged nursing, holistic nursing programs, and
yeah,
there's the medicine practitioners as well as the naturopathic doctors now, right? Because we have
yeah,
the MD. The industrial complex as it is, it's big business, right?
yeah.
And it's just what it is. But fortunately, people are just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. What else? And we're seeing more and more and more and more and more people open to this. And so that is a ginormous engine and machine that will continue to generate trillions of dollars. And that's what it does. And at the same time, people are opening to, they want the healing, they want the energy, they want the soul stuff.
Totally. So many more people are like, I'm beyond symptom management. I want healing. And it's great to see all those shifts inside of and yeah, outside of the system. You mentioned before you had an NDE, and I'd love to hear more about that and about how your personal NDE and your paramedic work and your work as a medical medium now, how has that shaped your view on death and dying?
There is absolutely nothing to fear in death. Death is as natural as birth, and it's like taking off a heavy coat.
Mm,
So we culturally fear death, right? We
yeah.
have such a kind of superficial society that hyper focuses on youth, right? And we don't allow for the wisdom of the elder generation, which is where we're all hoping to go. Like if you're young, like you're missing out on a lot of life. But we're so death phobic that people
Yeah.
just don't talk about it. And the people, we want to matter, right? We want to feel loved and supported, and we want to count for something. And death is like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm gone. What do you mean I'm gone? It's like too much for the mind, right? So people just would rather look away
Mm,
oftentimes.
mm,
But my near-death experience, I was off the rails because my upbringing was extremely violent. I didn't have stability. I didn't have nurturing. And then I got all this sensory stuff to figure out. So when I was 17, my mom died of cancer. And right after that, I was like, yeah, screw this. And I just went off alcohol, drugs, just trying to cope, right? Because again,
mm,
what do we want? We want a sense of power, or we want to dumb it down, right?
yeah,
We just
yeah.
something to make not feel this way, right? And I had a particularly rough one where I actually overdosed and had my near-death experience. And in my experience, and I've had many other types of higher consciousness, unity consciousness, transcendental experiences through my shamanic work, in my own personal healing, through plant medicine ceremonies, through breath work, through Kundalini. There's a lot of ways to active or to connect with that source energy. But what it is it just pulls off kind of the veil, the senses that hold
Yeah,
us in this bubble, right?
Yeah.
And as that veil thins, we just remember, oh yeah, I already knew all this. This is all just energy, right? This is all consciousness. I'm down
Mm.
here having my little individual experience. And I was over it. I was not having a good time. I was like, I'm done. And I actually given the choice, they're like, yeah, we know it's been hard, but if you go back, you're going to help a bunch of people understand this. And so I was like, okay, fine. So I was enjoying the unity consciousness bubble because it's just this golden energy and it just is so like yummy. And you remember everything and you see everything and you know everything and it's not overwhelming. It makes total sense because we're so heightened, right? And then I came back and I thought that because I saw and felt everything here, that I would be given like a task list of like, okay, now this is how you kick all the subs, all your addictions. This is how you get your life out of the ditch. This is how you figure out how to deal with all of this. None of that. I got none of that. Right. I I had to figure it out. And let me tell you, I was pissed because I was like, dude, I felt tricked, you know?
Yeah.
But I was like, it was such an important learning moment because I was really angry at the world. I felt as though I was owed something because I had come through severe violence and abuse, because I was perceiving all of this in the way that I was. I just had this chip on my shoulder and I wanted somebody else to come do it for me, right? Like, tell me what to do, fix me. But Spirit was like, yeah, no, that's not how this goes. You have to do it. And I remember stomping around for like 2 weeks, because again, when I'm in this place, and this is so relatable because so many people are going through so much heaviness right now, right? And they don't necessarily want to die. We have a lot of people that are like, I'm over it right now, but they don't want to die. They just don't want to feel this way, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-entitlement happening where people are like, well, I deserve for this to be done. I deserve that, whatever. But truly, nobody is coming to save you.
Mm.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
And that's a bitter pill to swallow, especially if you come through a lot of trauma like I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
It's a bitter pill. And it took me a number of weeks of just stomping around non-acceptance,
Mm.
flustered, my fist up to God, And I finally was like, all right, fine. Nobody's coming to see me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I started to realize like I am the way that I am. I have tried every substance under the sun to try to make this go away. And it's not going to go away. So what am I going to do with it? How do I want to lean into it? So I kicked all the substances. I got cleaned up. I left the area, changed locations, changed identities, changed friend groups. And that's when I got into being a paramedic. And then the gifts came forward, right?
Wow. What was that time frame like in making those shifts? Because as you say, people do get the justified resentments thinking
Mhm.
can be a really big one, and something that we can really use to try and legitimize or fight for our limitations or whatever it is. Like, what were some of those steps? And you shared like what those shifts were. What was there any like epiphanies or mindset changes or inner practices that you were like, right, I'm going to start making these micro shifts that then left space for those bigger changes to start happening?
Yeah. So once I really understood that nobody was coming to save me and that I was going to have to do it. And I was legitimately pissed. And it's okay to be pissed. If
Yeah.
you've been through a lot of stuff, doing all of this like spiritual talk and trying to silver lining it, that just makes it worse. It's like, let's be real about what we just came from. And we don't have
Mm.
to like make it better, than it is. And sometimes it just outright sucks. And a lot of times it's just not fair, right? But this is life. And ultimately, everything is up to us and how we want to, what we want to make it mean and what we want to do with it.
Yep.
It's much easier to be victim, go into victim. And I spent
Yep.
a lot of time, and that's when I was drinking and drugging and doing my stuff like, oh yeah, I deserve whatever. But I was bypassing my
Yeah.
own responsibility and I was
Yeah.
bypassing healing because I
Yeah.
was angry, right?
Yeah.
And that's super relatable. So
Yeah.
I took me going all the way into the overdose because I tend to be I like intensity. Like I'm a go big or go kind of gal, you know? So I was like all in. But when I finally was like, okay, this is what it is. I had to write a list for myself. And at the top, I put, I am ultimately responsible for every aspect of my life. And I had to itemize. So I had a cocaine habit and all this, anything white powder, I was all about it. So that was like my number one. That's what I OD'd on, right? So that's number one. Alcohol, got to kick that. Smoking, I was 3 packs a day, sister. Told you, go big or go home. And then so this is on my list, like I got to quit all that and then I got to start exercising and start eating better. So I like to advocate to people, go most invasive to least invasive. What's going to kill you fastest is where you got to start. Okay, so if we're messing around with fentanyl, heroin, crack, meth, any of the big ones, even like tons of drinking, that's where we got to start, right? And then just keep smoking your cigarettes and drinking your coffee as you continue to step it down. We got to be real about this. Otherwise, it's just an idea. And so I just flushed everything and I went through the withdrawals. And after my like 2 weeks of just torture, but after I went through that, alcohol was easy for me to let go of because once I found all the uppers, and uppers are the only thing in my entire life that have suppressed the energy. That's why people like do Adderall, right? Because it actually synthesizes in the brain and calms us down as sensitives. I'm not advocating to do it, people. Okay, that's not what we're saying. But I had to kick that because it was not good for my health. And then I took it step by step. So the alcohol went away. The smoking, I would go on off, but instead I started replacing it with healthier stuff. Let's go for a walk. Let's maybe not eat at McDonald's 5 times this week. Let's maybe go for 2, right? Like we got to be real about the stepping down stuff. I don't eat McDonald's at all anymore, but back then, right? And so stepping it down in a realistic way. So wherever you guys are in your life, if you're wanting to make change, one, it starts with true acceptance that it's on you. And take your time getting to that acceptance because there might be a lot of anger and work with that. Okay. There's wisdom in that. We don't need to spiritualize anger as some like less than emotion. Anger is powerful, man. You can use it as as a motivator.
Yeah.
Take your time coming to that acceptance piece and then be real about what you're doing. Because so many people, I only have a glass of wine. I'm sorry, what, a bottle a night? You know, it's like we got to be real about what we're actually doing. And trust me, I've been doing this a long time now and worked with tens of thousands of people. Everybody's up to something. And even if it's over exercising or over productivity, got to be busy all the time. That's an addiction.
That's a big
That's
one.
a bypass, right? So if you're like, oh, I don't do drugs, I don't do any of that, but you're always on your phone scrolling, right? So just start to get real about what it is that you're doing with yourself. And then be real about the fact whether or not you're ready to make the changes. Everybody's different with that one too. Some people, most of us won't really change until we get either hit with something as big as I did, or hopefully it won't go that far. You'll just get sick of feeling that way. You just get sick and tired of your same old stuff, right? And when we get sick and tired of ourselves is when we'll finally change. So it's step it down. Mine were very intense. Yours don't have to be. But the time frames, you know, if you're going to make one adjustment, like if you're drinking 5 nights a week, let's go for 3. And if you're, you know, if you're at a pack a day, let's take it down to, can you do a half? Like we're just going to be real, because if we try to do the cold turkey, you tell somebody not to do it, and we're all going to want to do it more. So if we're working with something like, I'm going to scroll a half an hour less, I'm going to put my phone down an hour before bed, I'm going to choose not to eat at those fast food restaurants that are actual poison, right? And make better choices for myself. So there's ways that you can do it that are going to be sustainable, and it's not going to throw you into like a destabilization.
Yeah, I love that. So important. And I love that you're just naming how incremental and real to approach these things, regardless of where you're at. And like you said, sometimes people are like, oh, well, I don't have an addiction, if they have a correlation with that being a substance or a really acute behavior. But unfortunately, there's a lot of addictions that get glorified in our cultures and then enabled. And yeah, it's a really interesting one. As you said before, like, of course, death isn't the end and it's a continuation. When you saw souls leaving the body as a paramedic, what were some of those experiences like? I would assume, don't know. A lot of those souls may not have known that the end of their lifetime was coming. So, can you share with us some of those experiences?
Sure. So I witnessed probably 20 to 30 active transitions and then hundreds of dead bodies of all various stages of decomposition. Okay. So I'm
Wow.
very well versed with death. I noticed over time that there was a difference in energetic presentation, physical as well, but energetic presentation between a medical death or somebody who's expected to die, end stage cancer, end stage disease, hospice. Okay. Versus a trauma death. And I'll share the difference. A medical death, they're usually just lying in their bed or at home or whatever. And we've all heard these experiences where people start talking to deceased loved ones, right? Days, weeks before their death. And they start maybe communicating with angels or so, whatever. Well, what's happening, again, you hear the veil is thinning. Well, what does that mean? What it means is we all have an auric field that is the bubble, right? It's our semi-permeable membrane of energy that holds the cells intact. It also holds all of our senses: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, the ego, which gets such a bad rap in the spiritual community, but it's vital for our human existence.
Yeah.
Okay, to like who you are, guys.
Function. Yeah.
There's gravity, which is not my favorite. And then there's duality. And so as the person's auric field begins to expand, the outer film of the field begins to thin, and all of those energies that are always around become available to the person dying. So they can see the dead people around them. They can teleport, they can astral travel, right? And so we hear all the time of, grandma's been dying in her bed, but she's talking to grandpa who's been dead for 10 years. We hear that kind of stuff all the time. In the moments of death, the heart will kick out and then the respirations follow. And they do this like slow, it's called agonal respirations. It's like guppy breathing. But what happens energetically, it's really cool. It looks like a ribbon unfurling, and it starts at the root, and then the ribbon goes up the chakras, and it's so organized. Sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's a little slower, but it's precision. So I just knew, I'm like, this is something higher, man. This is coming from some program somewhere else. But the soul is essentially going up and then out the crown. So that's the light at the end of the tunnel. Whoop, you're going out the top of your head. And so what happens is the soul shoots out the top of the head. And this is almost always, I'd say 9 times out of 10. Sometimes it comes out the front, but usually that's a trauma. But it looks like a little mist comes out. And then I would usually see them at the ceiling in the corner in a little family reunion with dead people or their pets, right? Or sometimes if they're super religious, there'd be like archetypes there. So that would be a medical death. Sometimes they'd walk around the room with us, and so it'd just be really interesting to watch. Very clinical, organized, and divine. Now let's talk
Mm,
trauma death. And this is the
mm.
thing why I'm always, my biggest message is always, please just live your life. Please let yourself please let yourself have the experiences you want, because none of us know. I can't tell you how many people got up in the morning, had their Cheerios, go through the Starbucks drive-through, and they come out and bam, they get T-bone. That's it. Or their building collapses, or there's a school shooting, or there's, it's like on and on and on and on. They didn't know. And so what happens is the soul is confused. So think about it. You got your whatever, Frapple whatever at Starbucks. You got your thing and you're pulling out and you're distracted and you're on your phone and you get drilled by this huge Hummer or some giant, Dodge Ram or whatever. It's always some giant vehicle. You get knocked out of your body and you are confused because you were just about to drink your drink and, listen to your jams as you're going to work. So the soul on scene, I'd see the body crumpled in the car and the soul standing next to it. And the soul looks like the person, but I can see through them. Okay. And they're like, what the hell's going on? And they're looking at themselves like, what is this? Right.
Wow.
We'd have drive-by gunshot wounds victims all the time, right? They're just looking at their body on the sidewalk like, what is this? Right. They don't get it because it happens so fast. You're in, you're out. You don't have that 2 weeks or months or however long to like assimilate.
Transition.
You're in, you're out. And so I developed a protocol because I had enough of them looking at me like, and telepathically, I could just communicate. How they could tell that I could see them, again, I think as mediums or channels, again, it's just a vibrational resonance. So it must have been like they could just tell. So what I started doing was I developed like a protocol. So I'm coming in, we got to stabilize the car, we got to get the body, we got to do all that physically. But I'd be talking to the soul, hey, you were just in a car accident, you're dead. We're going to stabilize and pull your body out. We're going to start CPR. I'm all boop, 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 because they're like, what is this? Like, right? But then what would happen most of the time, trauma deaths, if you die in a trauma death, it is very unlikely you'll come back. Like, how sometimes we get the pulses back on CPRs and things like that. Most of the time, trauma death is like, that's it. Sometimes they do come back though, and that's a whole other deal. But when the person is really okay, they're standing there, they're confused. I'm communicating with them. An angel would come on the scene. And I didn't see wings and like flowing hair. It started like fireflies because it's just frequency. And it took shape of this form that was like it would go 8 to 12 feet. It was super tall, cobalt blue, androgynous, very beautiful, but you couldn't really see the face. I never saw wings. It was just this cobalt blue, almost gray, just pulsing energy. And it just blanketed everything in love. It just went
Wow.
silence. So you got to imagine my perspective. We're pulling dude out of the car. I'm managing airway. We got to like handle all the all the things. And then I see this is coming on scene. Well, the person who just died is like, what is that? Like, that feels good. That's really pretty, right? And the angel would hold, and it wouldn't like come take the person. It would just hold this frequency until the person kind of was like, okay. And they face and disappear. And then we would, yeah. Anyways, I get goosebumps still.
Wow.
It was so incredible to see. And at the same time, like a lot for my little mind. I'm like, what am I going to do with that? Especially when I wasn't talking to people openly about it at the time, Can't just bring that up at playgroup with the other moms,
Wow. That is incredible and so much to hold.
Yeah. It was a lot for me, like a lot for a long time. And there was some of them that jacked me up, not gonna lie, because you don't want to die. A lot of these trauma people, And they were the ones that were hard on me were the ones that were trying to climb back in their body. That was hard to watch, because I knew, yeah. So that was haunting, but I got to this point where it's a blessing and a curse to be like this, to be
Yeah.
honest. Still to this day, it comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility because
Yeah.
again, holding that container, being a midwife in death is such a, a beautiful experience. It's such an honor. Like,
Yeah.
oh, of
Yeah.
all experiences that person ever had in their entire life, and I'm the last person they're ever going to see or talk to, right?
Yeah.
Such an honor to be right at that portal. And there's a lot that comes with it. I mean, I think a lot of hospice workers and, those of us that kind of are familiar with that space. Yeah. So just taking care of myself. I had to do a lot to take care of myself.
Yeah. Wow. That's remarkable. Thank you so much for sharing and for sharing those differences in the ways of people passing. I think that's so fascinating. Oh, wow. Looking back, like what was some of your key learnings?
Well, to live your life. Yeah, just live your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, you guys, come on, like let yourselves use the nice plates and dishes, burn the nice candles, wear the nice clothes, take the trip, tell the person you love them, go after what you really want to do, even though you're scared shitless to do it. Do it because we're all going to die at some point.
Mm.
So lean in to life, challenge yourself on the limitations. That's definitely hands down my biggest one. And now it's to embrace your sensitivities as well, right? Because there's so many, here I am thinking I was this lone weirdo, right? But no, man, there's so many of us on this planet and more coming in every day.
Yeah.
And so this is becoming normalized, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal because we can just talk about, oh, you see stuff? Okay, cool, do this. Oh, you hear stuff? Okay, cool, do this. Right? Are you taking on everybody's shit? Oh, okay, do this. We don't have
Yeah.
like it doesn't have to be this weird mystical thing anymore. To me, it's just the energetics and the quantum.
Yeah.
And so learning about your sensitivities and your giftedness. And if you are deep and you are sensitive and you are misunderstood or you feel other people's stuff, or any of the other gifts, like I just said, you're safe, you're okay. It's our time. It's
Yeah.
literally our time. We are like the next genre to come out of the closet, right? It's 10 to 30% of the world's population. So it's 1.6 billion at 10 to 20% is 1.6 billion. That's those who are probably aware. And then we have about probably the same number that don't know or are closeted still. And so what I'm here to do is to remind you to live your life. Yeah. And hey, it's time. We're like this for a reason. Let's lean in. We can actually
Mm,
be badass. Like we can actually use this as a superpower now. And that's more of what I'm up to now, helping people understand that.
I love it. And it is our time. I know there's, particularly for those who have gone before us, so much historical wounding around being public with those gifts, abilities, perceptions. It is definitely changing. It is.
It's change.
Yay. So, as a medical medium now, like, what does that look like?
So I do medical intuition and psychic surgery.
Mm,
Medical intuition is the ability to obviously read the auric field and find any blocks or imbalances with any dis-ease in the body. And psychic surgery, for layman's terms, for people to just understand, it's like pressure washing and roto-rooting people for a living because people are so bogged down in their crap, or they're on so many pharmaceuticals, or they're like, whatever their deal is, right? I've been to every doctor and every specialist and I can't figure out what it is. We can trace it back to the underlying etiology, and it's going to be likely energetic. There is the physical component of toxins and things that we're working with in today's environment, but a lot of it is emotional, unresolved emotional stuff, right? So when we get down to the root of stuff, we in psychic surgery can clear out the auric field, which feels to the person like they're being pulled out of a ditch, like they're losing 1,000 pounds, like they're coming through this fog. It's like, oh my God, I always hear it. They're like, I feel like myself again, you know? So there's that. And then we'll go into wherever the imbalances or blocks are and do some work to open that up. So yeah, that's what I do full time now and have for quite a while. It's pretty cool.
Amazing, amazing. And what's your understanding of the word or the concept frequency, and how do you attune yourself to it and cultivate alignment with optimum frequency in your daily life?
So everything is frequency, right? Even like you take one cell and
Mm-hmm.
all the vibration. Where does waveform, particles, right? Vibration and space. So you take one cell, vibration, and a whole bunch of space in there. Well, the physical body has the 7 primary organ systems, and each of those has a vibrational range of health. So, like your heart likes to vibrate at a certain frequency, your lungs, your gut, your skin, etc. So I look at everything because I can see it. So it's like always apparent to me as frequency. And at the same time, you have to understand that this good vibes only thing, that's a great thought, but that's not real. That's not this life anyway. It's not all good times down here, right? It's dense down here. This is a dualistic paradigm with light and shadow, and you have to have both to create the other. So in terms of frequency, there's nothing to fear in darkness, you guys. All darkness is denser, slower waveform. What light is just a faster waveform. Okay, there's nothing to fear in any of it. And when you understand, oh, wait a second, okay, I'm just a bunch of vibrating particles, but my body likes to have a specific field of health. Well, then you do things that make you feel good. You drink water, you exercise, you breathe, you get rest, you eat good foods, you meditate, you do your stuff um, to take care of the physical body. And I have personally found that in order to be very powerful with your gifts, everybody's talking about manifest your best life. I'm like, what is that? There's all these spiritual like projections and like little one-liners and stuff, and that's fine. I'm not slamming the spiritual community. I've just seen a lot of kind of
Yeah.
bypassing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what about this? Like, what are we doing with this? And that's the paramedic in me. And when, again, if you've seen this much death, I can't just do that. It's just not real. So being willing, you guys, to accept all sides of yourself, okay, the light, the happy, the good stuff, whatever, as well as the stuff that you don't like, right? The fear, the shame, the judgment, the jealousy, the envy, all of the deceptiveness, like all the shit that you're actually doing in terms of coping and stuff like that. Be willing to own that, because that's part of your power. That's half of your power. And in order to be very powerful in your energetic gifts, and even you want good health, you got to live in your body. We can't be disassociated up and out. We can't be like, we got to be grounded in the body. So being grounded in the body, and then being willing to do shadow integration work, being willing to look at those parts of ourselves, being willing to do those meditations while simultaneously doing the things that feel good. What happens is we go down and in and we meet ourselves, and that it's always equal. It's always paradoxical here. So the more down in we go, the more up and out we become. There's a lot of people who want to go up and out and do all the shiny stuff without doing the down and in, and they just maybe not. I get it. It doesn't feel super good, but we have to develop those roots in order to be able to hold the vastness of our capabilities as a human.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what are some inspiring projects or tools or initiatives that you've come across lately, Sarah, that you feel are creating positive change, or that have really been game changing for you or your clients or a community that you interact with?
Well, I'll just tell you, girl, I am currently forming Empath X, which is sensitivity is your superpower.
Cool.
So coming in to revolutionize the spiritual and energetic world by making it badass to be like sensitive, to be how you are.
Mm.
because there's oftentimes a lot of fragility. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so sorry. I can't function. I can't go out in the world. I have to ground and bubble. What if you're actually an ninja? What if you actually knew how to use that to the max
Yes.
ability? We can be
Yes.
strong, we can be powerful, we can be vital, we can use it in the moment in real life. And that is what EmpathX is. And that's what I'm actively building.
Amazing. Oh, what a powerful reframe for so many empaths to be able to tap into.
Mhm.
That is fab. Sarah,
Can
is
be
there anything else that you want to share with us that
No,
you
I'm just grateful that you invited me here, and I'm happy to support you and meet everybody who's listening. Thank you for being here and sharing. And if you guys have any questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at SarahKGrace.com. You can find all my current stuff there and then watch kind of the unfolding of EmpathX.
awesome? So that is the place to go to if you are an empath who's ready to step into something new and to journey with Sarah. And why wouldn't you want to do that?
Woo, yay.
Sarah, thank you so much for your time. I super appreciate it.
Absolutely, dear. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.